Hey, hey, and welcome to another episode of the Full Frontal Living podcast. I'm Lisa Carpenter, and today I'm doing something different. You're going to listen in on a real coaching conversation I had with Greg, an airline pilot, along with many other significant roles in the airline industry, who gave me permission to share this with you. And here's what I love about this episode. Greg has significant wealth on paper, beautiful assets, multiple properties, yet he's still waking up at 3 a.m. worried about money. Sound familiar? This is exactly what I mean when I talk about context coaching versus content coaching. Greg doesn't have a money problem. He had a story problem. And you're going to hear me coach him out of his just enough identity and into recognizing he's actually wealthy. This is context coaching in action. And this is the coaching that I do day in and day out with my clients. I don't coach to the problem they present to me, I coach to the problem they actually have. And what unfolded with Greg was this beautiful shift from scarcity thinking into stepping into his wealth identity. So, if you've ever found yourself successful on paper, but still operating from old stories about not having enough, this episode is for you. You'll hear the exact pattern interrupts and tools I gave Greg to shift this. And honestly, his vulnerability in this conversation was incredible. This is the first of many live coaching episodes I'll be sharing with you. So let me know what you think. And if you're ready to examine the stories that are keeping you stuck, head to lisacarpenter.ca/WWM to apply for coaching today. Alrighty, without further ado, let's dive into this powerful conversation with Greg. Hi, Greg. Thanks for
Hey, good
joining me
morning.
today. So, we're just going to have a conversation and I'll let you start. So, what question do you have for me today? How can I
Well,
help you?
first of all, thank you for
Mm,
taking time out for me. I am in currently a transformational coaching program, and uh, it has been a metamorphosis. And my husband Kevin has definitely encouraged me because he's seeing the change. I mean, it is percolating everywhere, and that is pretty exciting. Um, so I think my idea of just being, especially being a type A personality, I'm an airline pilot by trade. I've been in the industry for a very long time, and so you kind of get wrapped up in wanting to control everything or control outcomes, leaving backup plans for every possible thing, recognizing that humans do make mistakes. I do make mistakes when I'm flying. It's just part of our nature. And the issue is you want to make sure you're catching those mistakes and fixing them. But that type A solving all the problems at 35,000 feet, solving the problems of the world doesn't necessarily make for a good being. And so I've used this coaching as the opportunity to find peace of mind. And
mm,
so I know I let you know in former messages that the coaching that I've gotten and the peace of mind that I've gotten, I know that's priceless. And I'm very, very grateful. And so anything I can do to give back just for getting that and being okay. Because I know the world right now, actually, the world goes into these ebbs and flows. I mean, we saw it in the global pandemic.
yeah.
I'm in the airline industry. I've experienced 9/11. I've experienced airline bankruptcies, financial downturns. I've seen this roller coaster happen. A lot of the more junior pilots I fly with have no concept of
Mm,
what this industry can do and what the economy can do. And so now that we're seeing more global turmoil and international travel may come to a halt, we don't know. Um, I'm okay. And that's a really nice place to be. Um, the challenge I'm facing now, and I kind of gave myself the flexibility to not come crashing into you coaches with this. One of the reasons that I've sought help is this idea of just enoughism.
mm,
I do very well financially now. I didn't for a very long time. Grew up in a middle class household, that heard all of the things like money doesn't grow on trees and we can't afford that and that's not us. All of the just these amazing isms and now I'm making more than most people in my country do. And so uh, at the same time, I may have some assets, but golly, the cash flow is just dry as a bone. And
Mm.
so it seems like every time I bring cash in, it's just enough. It's always just enough. And so there's something I know from the coaching that that is an identity issue and that is something that I've sort of handcuffed myself to be in that space. In the past, I do remember staying up all night and worrying, how was I going to pay the electric bill? 2009, 2010, oh my gosh. How was I going to pay my rental property mortgages and pay for food for myself? I mean, just all of these things where it was just enough. And that was 16 years ago, 15 years ago. And sometimes now I still feel like that.
So
And so
you're
that
still working from just enough.
totally. Oh yeah. And I'm
And
not
is that the
I'm
truth, Greg?
um
Or is
the
that the
truth
story
is
you're telling yourself?
I think the story that I'm telling myself is I don't know why I'm allowing myself to get into these holes.
Right. But is
That
it the truth? Do you have
I
just enough or do you have more than enough? What is the truth?
that's an interesting question, an interesting vantage on it because if I were to go into my bank accounts, it
Hmm.
would feel like just enough. But if I were to look at my equity and assets and things I've acquired, oh my gosh. I mean, I have a beautiful house and a
Yeah.
beautiful pool in Arizona. I mean, so absolutely that is a advantage. So what is truth? What is the truth is how I feel, and that is it's sort of percolating where I'm feeling like
Right.
I'm getting myself back into a hole. And I said I wasn't going to do that again.
Right. But you're allowing yourself to because the data
Yeah.
actually that you have, if you look at the data, you have more than enough.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm not even though my husband might argue with this, I don't feel like I have attachment to a rental property or things like that. I've let that go. I would say in my past I did. I now they're just vehicles. I looked at my rental properties. My being a landlord was, oh, this is the pension that I lost when uh, my employer went into bankruptcy
Right.
and dissolved our that. There was an attachment issue before. Now I'm like, okay, these are just tools to
Right.
go on.
And ultimately, you know you're going to be okay.
Absolutely. And that's the part of the coaching program I've experienced is I'm allowing myself to be in this feeling of okay, but it seems like there are habits coming back. Like I'm getting like a few nights ago, I woke up in the middle of the night, and hasn't happened in a while, where all I could think about was lack.
Hmm.
And it the difference was now I can see what's going on. I can sort of be out of body and go, oh, that's that's me thinking in terms of worry, and I don't need to worry. Everything's going to be fine.
Because you have
It's
more than
just,
enough.
yeah, absolutely. And how, fear and worry draining my
Right.
power. How am I allowed? Is this a habitual thing? Maybe that's the
So
question at the end of the day.
what you're telling me is that you don't have a problem, Greg, but you're making a problem. So you're
So,
in a
yeah,
pattern of believing, I don't have enough, I don't have enough, I don't have enough, was maybe true back in the day, right? I remember those days where it was like I was robbing Peter to pay Paul, right?
it feels like that right now.
But
That's
the
interesting that you
reality
said
is
that.
today that when you look at the data, when you look at your investments, if you were to write down everything, all the assets that you had, and you totaled them up and you kept that piece of paper in your wallet and you pulled that out, Would that make you feel like you don't have enough, or would that make you feel like you have more than enough?
It would just I don't think it would make me feel either way. And that's a big change for me, that
So
where
here's the
I'm trying
thing
not to let
though,
it make me feel
right? But what
anything.
you're telling me is I feel like I don't have enough. And I'm asking you, if you wrote all that down and you read it every day, would it allow you to feel like you have more than enough?
It would definitely allow that.
Right.
I would allow myself to feel that.
Correct. So it's a pattern interrupt to say, Greg, we're not playing
Mm,
this game anymore. We're not going to work from I feel like I don't have enough. Because the reality is, the truth is, the data shows me I have more than enough. And if you needed to liquidate something to pay for something, you could. You may not want to do that, but
yeah.
that's the truth, right? So that's one state of how you can shift what it is you're experiencing, right? Because you can feel wealthy and have no money in the bank, right? Businesses go through ups and downs where we have higher revenue years and lower revenue years. Even I've experienced that. But wealthy is a state of mind, it's a state of being. And when I'm operating from that place, I'm going to show up differently in the world. The same is true for you. So you can look at your bank account and be like, wow, I don't like this. And there's a whole separate conversation there around like how you might be wanting to look at how you're managing your money differently. That's a whole other conversation. But first, it starts from like, can I be the person that holds that vibration of I have more than enough? And I'm no longer going to play this game with myself that is this voice that's telling me I don't have enough. Because when you feel like you don't have enough, what else does that lead to? Lack of sleep,
Yeah.
anxiety, worry. So you're feeding an old story, an old version of yourself where you don't have any data that backs it up.
Yeah. Well, and I think that confirms that it felt like this was habitual. It wasn't, yeah. And I found myself doing that. But now I feel like I have more tools to say, hey, and I thank you for saying pattern interrupt because I couldn't place what exactly I needed to do to
Right,
identify because I've been feeling that like, hey, put it in the wallet. I can see what kind of
right.
equity assets I have. I just didn't know for sure was this me doing this or was it just like the old habit brain
So
doing it?
sometimes you can get into overthinking, right? Because when you have a
Yeah.
problem, you've trained yourself to solve the problem.
Yeah.
So it creates this like level of overthinking, right? Whereas when it comes to having more than enough, you're not flying a plane, nobody's life is at risk,
Right. Well,
right?
other than my husband, I feel like, and again, this is a story that he's 100% disabled from the military, and
Right,
so I'm a single breadwinner, and
right,
I think like, oh, I've got to make sure that
right.
all of that
So worry is a habit.
for sure.
Worry is absolutely a habit. So when we are, so for me, like I spent, gosh, most of my life in the habit of worry over money and anxiety over money, right? Like money was my master. I was a slave to it. And the amount of time and energy I spent in anxiety, worrying about money, which I couldn't control that, right? I
Yeah.
couldn't, all I could be was responsible for where I was holding my thoughts, my energy, my feelings. And when we are retraining ourselves out of habits, it's the word that I like to use is being relentless. What is the story I want to tell myself? What is the truth? Right? So the truth is you are wealthy. The truth is you are wealthy. So,
And by the way, when you say that, I kind of get a just that's hard for me to hear that.
right. So that's part of the shift that is going on for you is stepping into that identity of like, what does it feel like to allow myself to be a wealthy person? Because if you can't hold that for yourself, you're always going to go back to lack and scarcity because that feels familiar and comfortable. So this
Yeah.
past weekend, I was staying with a girlfriend. She has a puppy and
Yay.
she's training the new puppy, right? So the puppy had a collar on, right? One of those ones where you can like give it just a gentle zap
Yeah.
to teach it, right? And I was thinking about this. I'm like, oh God, this is such a metaphor for when we're training ourselves out of old habits. Because she must have told that puppy, I don't know how many hundreds of times, place, right? That was to get it to go lie down on its bed.
Yeah.
Place, 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 right? And zap, 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 zap. It's not like a torturous thing, right? It's just a
No, no, I know. It's
thing,
the
if you will.
vibration.
For
Yeah.
anybody who loves dogs, it's a
Yes.
vibration thing. It's not a torture
Right.
thing. And I was thinking about as humans, we're so hard on ourselves. Like we get this awareness of something and then we think we should be able to master it like that. But the truth is, we have to continue to command ourselves over and over and over and over again until we get it. So that belief around I am wealthy, I am abundant, I have more than enough. It's being relentless in moving your attention back to that, in telling yourself that story over and over and over again, and allowing yourself to see the data that proves it. In my own life, for so many years, I wanted success, I wanted wealth, I wanted abundance in my coaching practice. But I realized that it didn't matter what I did, didn't matter how many books I'd written, how many courses, how many people I'd coached. I refused to allow myself to be successful. And this is something I coach many of my clients around who've built businesses, right? Like keep pushing for more and more and more. But that sense of success and fulfillment is never there for them because they always hold it at arm's length because they've put a definition around it that is
Yeah.
unattainable, right? So even when we say wealthy, right? We just keep moving the bar as to what that is. I wrote I am successful on my mirror, and every single day I would read that phrase because there's nothing more powerful than an I am statement. And I would read it every day, at least twice a day as I was brushing my teeth, as a way to affirm to myself, this is the identity you're stepping into, Lisa, because everything that you want to feel is on the other side of you feeling successful first. The wealth, the abundance, everything.
Yeah.
This is what's available for you, Greg, right? You are wealthy. You have more than enough. So you either choose to allow your adult self to show up or the 10-year-old version of yourself who bought into your family's stories, but that's not the truth of your life.
No, it isn't. And it's interesting that I could write "I am successful" over my mirror, that because I have these ideas of what success looks like.
Right.
Wealthy hasn't been one of them.
Right.
That's been a four-letter word, right?
Right.
And so I have to tell you, talk about a pattern disconnect or pattern interrupt. About 10 years ago, 10 plus years ago, and I have very wealthy friends. I mean, folks who were born into money, folks who have built from very little and are wealthy now. In fact, I've been in Cole Harbor on very large yachts before, so I've gotten to experience that, and I found myself about 10 plus years ago saying, "Oh, I don't need to be wealthy. I just need to have friends who are." I mean, that actually came out of my mouth, and it took a couple years for me to sense that was pretty callous of me to it like it didn't mesh with how I felt about my friends. Like
Right.
it almost felt like I was using them. I'm like, well, now I have to sit there and go, okay, interrupt that pattern and say, it's okay for me to join the club.
You
And I'm
have
in the club.
wealthy friends because you are an energetic match for wealthy friends.
I didn't understand that. I didn't
Right.
recognize that. And so thank you for that.
So here's the kind of homework I'm going to give you. It'll be fun.
Okay.
Let it be fun. You're going to pull out all your assets and you're going to get to like one master total amount. And you're going to write that total amount of what not you personally are worth, right? But what
Yeah.
all your assets are worth
Yeah.
on a piece of paper. And that's going to be your pattern interrupt. And every time this story, this voice, this inner child of yours, whatever it may be, comes up and wants to tell you that you don't have enough, you're going to look at that number and you're going to say, Greg, stop it. I am wealthy. We have more than enough. Everything is fine. And you're going to carry on with your life. And you're going to do that over and over and over, just like zapping the dog, place.
Place. I know. I was going to say that
Place
earlier.
until it's so second nature to you that that is where you're working from.
I love it, and the irony of saying place is that's where much of much of the equity is in place as. So yeah, I love that. I will definitely do that, and I'm interested in the follow-on conversation about cash flow management because that's one thing. I have an MBA. I mean, I've
Yeah.
gone to school. I understand what cash flow and top line and all of this is, and yet, and I've been operating the personal as if it were a business, recognizing, and it's just as I told a mutual friend of ours, we've gotten overextended. The I the plans that I had made, they didn't work out exactly, and timing didn't work out exactly. And so I find myself today overextended, much like thinking, oh, this is not going to happen again. But that has happened again. And that's okay because we have more than enough.
You have more than enough. And this is the thing. So many people don't have really solid habits around money. Like really smart people, even people
Yeah,
with a lot of money, don't have really solid habits around money because a lot of this stuff wasn't taught. I mean, I believe that I couldn't be smart with money because I wasn't smart with math, which math really has nothing to do with it, right? But it was really looking at my habits and behaviors around how I dealt with money. And when you're working from that story of I don't have enough, well, when you don't have enough, you don't take care of stuff.
correct.
But when you have more than enough, you have to learn how to be responsible with it.
That's a really good point.
So it's
Yeah.
interesting see how that story is playing out and how you tend to your everyday finances because if the story is I don't have enough, you're going to continue to perpetuate that and you're not going to
But
have the habits in place that allow you to have more than enough. And this is
it
the
sounds
big
like a
for me now,
procrastination excuse.
a little bit, right? So you can have a plane full of people. You feel responsible enough to fly a plane full of people around the world. You're never going to convince me that you're not going to be responsible enough to really take ownership of your money and make it work
That's
for
fair.
you and have it grow in the way you want it to. So you're not just feeling wealthy and abundant with your assets, but you really have command over your daily money coming in, money going out. Because money's energy. It's meant to flow. We're not meant to trap it.
Yeah.
But if you looked at your relationship with money as a whole, if money was a person, how would you describe that relationship?
Almost at someone I don't want to get to know,
Okay.
someone I don't want to be close to.
So it's hard to have a healthy relationship with somebody that you're always pushing away,
Yeah.
right? So is it that you don't have enough money coming in, or is it that on an unconscious level, you're always pushing it away? And what would need to change in that relationship for you to want to get to know money, for you to want to be in a healthy relationship with it?
Well, I think when recognizing that when you said that I am wealthy, and I had a visceral response. I'm sure you saw my body language when
Mm.
when you said that, and just kind of going, hey, that doesn't have to be. I can still be the amazing person I want to be, and I think I am, and still be wealthy. That they're not opposed. Because again, I have a lot of amazing
That's
friends
right.
who are wealthy.
And that, it's interesting that you say that because so many people have stories around what they believe wealthy people are greedy, arrogant, like you name it. And we never want to be that. So we will repel the thing that we don't want to be. But Greg, I haven't even known you that long, and none of those things, none of those labels could ever apply to you.
Yeah.
Good people can be wealthy people. Good people can be great stewards of their money. And what happens is when great people become great stewards of their money, they do great things with their money. Right?
And
So,
can I
yeah,
share one of those anecdotes?
100%.
And maybe this might be driving. the cognitive dissonance here because we set up two endowments at my alma mater for students. And we just found out that the first student to get a scholarship, a flight scholarship, was named a few months ago.
Mm.
And that was a big deal for us to get get those endowments set up. And it wasn't cheap. And we worked, there was a daily command of finances to make sure that that happened. And so and we didn't do it for the recognition. It's I'm not the name on the building kind of person. That doesn't push me. It's what pushes me is
Mhm.
helping students to get their dreams because I was helped.
Right.
I got where I am today because of folks who had those endowments. And so as I feel today that the cash flow is not where I want it to be or where it should be, and again, that's another story,
Where it can be.
where it can be, the I it almost feels like, oh, that person who set up those endowments, they're not the same person right now. And so there's almost a guilt of, hey, I need to do better than this because I want to do more things. I want to do more great things because we have the means to do that.
Absolutely. Right. So you see, by keeping yourself in this lack and scarcity mentality, by not stepping into this, you're actually doing such a disservice to the people who need you to show up, who may never be in the financial position you're in. Right. Like I take growing my company and growing my wealth as a high priority because I know what I do with my wealth. And when people come into a coaching container with me, I want to know that that money is flowing out into the world and doing good things,
Yeah.
right? Like that is my
Yeah.
responsibility. So I hope that you're understanding now that it is actually your responsibility to step into your wealth.
Just like it's my responsibility to land the plane you're on safely.
Yes, please. Yes, please. As somebody who's on a lot of planes, I always have that like every single flight, I'll have that moment of like, oh my God, I'm up in the air in a tin can. And then every time I just have to surrender and hand it over.
Don't worry, it's a plastic can now.
The plastic can. I just surrender and hand it over because there's nothing that I can do, right? Like once I'm buckled into my seat, which I also think is kind of funny because I'm like, I don't know if the seatbelt's going to do anything. But it is really a surrender and hand it over. But I'm the one
Yeah.
who chose to put myself in that position, right? And this is the thing in life. As you've learned, we have choice over so many things. And I personally believe that when you really understand how much freedom you get from personal responsibility, it will change your life. When you really become responsible for your money, for what you want to create in your life, for all of it, so much changes.
You're talking to somebody who got put in the quicksand of victimization, victim mentality,
Yeah.
and allowed that to be part of my life for so long. And I 2019, that's when I said enough is enough.
Yeah.
And so yes, the personal responsibility piece, the we're or you may have heard we're building a garage,
Mm,
a detached garage, and it has been hell. At the end of the day, though, um, we're the ones who hired the general contractor,
yeah.
and the buck stops here,
Right.
and so you sit there and go, okay, yeah, it's painful. It's taking time away from other things like my finances, managing finances, the the ends will justify the
Right.
means. And this was my choice.
Well, here's what you're not going to like to hear, Greg. You not taking responsibility for your finances and you being in this place of not enough, that's still your victim story.
I gotcha. No,
You're being a
that's why I
victim.
think that's a habitual thing. I really
You're being
do.
a victim of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is why personal responsibility is so hard for people because it really requires taking an honest and like radical honesty with yourself.
Well, Lisa, my former self would have been really pissed off that you said that, but you noticed that I owned it. And
Right.
that that tells me that that decision back in November of 2019, October, November 2019, to stop being in that victim mode, while doesn't mean that habit pattern, because I was in it for a very long
Yeah,
time. It
me
was a
too.
very negative place. Yeah. I mean, if since you've been in it, I have friends who've never been in it. And
Oh,
it's
everybody's got a victim.
okay.
Everybody's
But
got a victim. They just often don't present like the victim. But some of
ah,
the strongest, most powerful people that you know are running victim stories.
thank you. And I'm kind of the open book, so I laid it out there for people, and maybe that just made it more, that vulnerability made it more painful,
Mm,
because people could pick at it as they wanted, and I picked at it as I wanted.
yeah,
I own that, and you're absolutely right. That is the financial part. Nobody owns it but me, and that's okay. I as long as I acknowledge it um and can do better. And I know that successful people like you have been through it too
yeah.
and come out on the other side.
This is exciting because now you get to work from possibility, right? That's what personal responsibility does. It actually opens up, like, oh, what is possible for me if this
This was
is
my
how I no
life as a
longer
young
live
person,
it?
by the way.
Yeah,
This I had this. I felt this when I was in my late teens and early 20s.
yeah.
I know what this feels like. And I created an amazing world for a kid who didn't have much financially. I had a hell of a lot of resources that came my way. And then life happened. And I allowed things around me to take that idea of possibility away.
Mm,
That it's so awesome to not, it's so awesome to be back in that 19-year-old mentality,
right,
but with all these resources at my
right.
fingertips.
So here's what else we'll add to you writing that one big number that you're going to use
Yeah.
as a pattern interrupt. I'd love for you to sit down either by yourself or with your husband and make some decisions about the places and the ways that you want to be able to give back as you step into your wealth. Because
And
money loves direction, it loves purpose, and it makes it so much easier when you're setting up your, for lack of a better term, goals, but when you're stepping into the messy responsibility of cleaning things up, to have like this is what we're doing it for. This is in part what we're doing it for. And allowing yourself to give back, and also what are the things that you and your husband would want to do and be with that wealth, because you get to
love
enjoy
that.
it too. I just challenged a client today. This was a client who, when we started working together, she couldn't take any time off. And now she's booking, like, she'll come to my retreat and then she'll go off for like another 4 weeks and travel around the world and then come home. And I challenged her today to, because she's like, I need someone to go with me on this trip because I can't justify doing these private tours that she wants to do. And I said, what would need to change for you to be that woman
Yeah.
who's allowing that level of success to be in your life? That you book the private tours and you don't need anybody else, and you spend the money and you allow yourself to have that and not need to justify it.
Yeah. I love it.
Right? So that's available for you too, Greg. So tell me before we end this call, to feel like you've gotten what you need, what are your biggest takeaways?
Pattern interrupt for
Yeah.
sure. Recognizing that it is something that's habitual, and it to at least recognize that it's part of it. It goes back to storytelling and what's true. I think you tend to do a good job in saying, "Hey, what's true here? What's the story?" And so there are a lot of stories going on. Um, the 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 homework of writing that number and just doing that pattern interrupt is the stop it flashcard for me. I love that.
Yeah.
And then, you know, money loves direction. That I think I wrote that down because for a long time I didn't know how to do that.
Mm,
And I would sit there and see friends of mine who did put direction toward what they were doing. And so I was rudderless for a very long time. And so I've gotten a taste of that and I need to habitualize that.
right. I love that. So write that number down and like put it on sticky notes and, kind of post it around your house. You don't have to put a dollar figure. So if somebody walks in, they're like, why is this number up here? But post it in places where you can see it and really allow yourself to acknowledge that because it's really powerful when you see the data all the time because it forces you to stop lying to yourself.
I agree. And I did a kind of an initial of that a couple of weeks ago, and it kind of scared me.
Mm,
And it just again goes back to the, hey, you are wealthy, I am wealthy. What does that mean? And there are always going to be people who have more than you, have less than you.
absolutely.
That doesn't matter, but the fact that you can create the flow, that direction of those funds and change people's lives. I That is fantastic because
Right.
people did that for me. I want to do that. I want
Right.
to give that back.
Yeah, that's important to me too. Yeah, wealth is, you get to define what it is for you. It's not measured against anybody else. And when you step into that, like, oh, wealthy can look and feel however I want it for me, that's the game changer.
Love it.
Thanks for joining me, Greg. This is a great conversation.
Thanks, Lisa.